Good morning, bananimators. Have some coffee. It's a 2-coffee day, I can feel it. Okay, so the hair is getting out of control. Trying to grow it out again. And anybody who's been watching consistently knows last time I got fed up and shaved it off again. All right, so today is their Q&A episode. I did extremely well in questions. Usually I don't get a lot of questions. People are like, when do you make videos? I'm like, well, tell me what to make a video about. And they're like, stuff, like. Okay, the first one, FAQ. What is this thing? So we're going to go to insert backdrop. This thing, these things in the background are called backdrops. So if you need to search it, find out how to add one, it is called a backdrop. Okay, so in your node view, click on here, insert and backdrop. I get that one a lot because it's one of those things, some things in Toon Boom, like they seem super simple, but you don't know how to search them because you don't know what they're called because Toon Boom names things just higgledy-piggledy. So backdrop. Question done. I keep getting this question from Alex Clark, how to fix his backgrounds. First of all, you're always going to have the best backgrounds if you actually just have a night scene and a day scene. But if you only have a day scene, what I would do is use color scales for everything. Because the color scale is just the happiest little node. We put it on the background here, and we can bring the value down. See, now it's nighttime. Bring up the blue. The tricky thing is you have to muck about with these colors to try and figure out what you want. Like I really like a really saturated blue background, but very dark. When I do night skies, I just think they look very pretty. But if you have a color, like a very exact color you want to match, I have a trick for that. So here, I have a nice blue. Let's say this is the blue that they want. You're at your director or something says, oh, we have this sky, but we want it to be a nighttime sky, and this is the color that we want. There's an easy way to do that. Here is our daytime sky. We'll just eyedropper it. And the RGBA is 193. 193247249. Now the color we want it to be, RGB, is 39, 27, and 86. So when you're working with the color scale, it is a percent. All right. So 1 means 100%. 100% green, 100% blue, 100% red. Or red, green, blue. So your sky here is at 100%, and 100% is 193. What times 193 will give you 39? Well, the calculator will tell you. 193 divided by 39 is, nope, other way. If you get a crazy number like 4, it's wrong. You have to do it the other way, and I can never remember which one you do first. So it's 39 divided by 193. I always have to do division twice because I always do it wrong. 0. And you can go to super small decimals for this. So you can 0.202. Let's just do 3 decimals. 0.202. Red, small number first. 27 divided by 247.109. That should be a decimal. And then the blue, 86 divided by 249 equals 345. Easy to know. Easy to remember. Color scale here. And it's an exact match. People say to me, Tracy, how do you do exact color matching? This is how I do it. I will just divide the old color by the new color by the old color. I can never remember which way it goes. But if you try it and you get a crazy number, it's not that one. And that'll exact color match your nighttime sky. And now for other stuff, like if you want to transition from a moon, say, you have a sun and you need a moon, I just use transparency for that. So you'd have your little moon. Boop, boop, boop. That's a moon. It's lumpy. Still good, just a little lumpy. And then I just crossfade them. So transparency with the moon. And the transparency, of course, is you want it to be 100% transparent. This little circle-y maboober here will, if you've got a crazy, like if you can't find your line, it'll fit your line. So now your moon fades on. And your sun, you just reverse that. For the sun, I'll just switch them. So this one's 100. This one's 0. And then they'll just fade, just crossfade from one to the next. That's fine. You can add a little haze or something to your moon, make it an actual circle. The only one that's kind of a pain is the cloud, because it is white. And if you just put a color scale on a cloud, like a white object, it just becomes like a weird color. You can muck about with it, try your best to get a nice thing. But you may want to just use your other thing, your hue saturation, because it has a colorize node. So if you're having trouble with your color scale, that may be an issue. There are incidents where you'll start with something that's such a different color than the other one that your color scale will fade through a spectrum of things you don't like. In that case, I would have two. I would have like nice cloud or day cloud, night cloud. I just duplicate it, and then I would use transparency to hide the day cloud and reveal the night cloud. Pretty simple stuff. Don't overthink it. I feel like you're overthinking it. Use a color scale for everything. It's perfect. Okay, how do you speed up animation overall? So I have some videos that are helpful for this. I have a bunch of playlists, so I don't know how many people actually go and look at the playlists. I'm at 9,300 some odd subscribers, so I'm only 600 and change away from 10,000 subscribers, which is super exciting, so please share. But in my animation playlist, animation tips. Okay, so if you're interested in animation in particular, checklists forever. This is really good for speeding up your animation. Workflow 1, character animation blocking, another one. You want to block your stuff out very sensibly. Hey, look, I have no hair there. I like it. Maybe I should shave it off again. Checklist Forever is the one I did that's most going to help you speed up your animation. There's also one in the rigging playlist called the Fairy Rig 0. If you are rigging a character, that's going to speed up your workflow the most for those two things. Quick overview is you speed up your animation by knowing what you need to do, what you already have, where you can get new things. If you have to do a weird pose in scene 1 and you also need the same pose in scene 4, don't do the same pose twice. Take all your poses from the previous scene and bring them into scene 4. It's ridiculous to do it twice. And for that reason, it pays to watch all your scenes, your storyboards beforehand, make a little list of the hardest scenes, the things that will pay off the most. Because if you have a scene where you have to run for 500 frames, before that, you had a scene where they only have to run for 25 frames. If you do the long scene first, you can take that and put it in the short scene. You can't take a short scene and put it in a long scene as easily. So knowing what you need to do and making an actual plan for it is going to save you a lot of time. Just so much time. Also, when you're animating with a rig, you always want to start at the top of the rig down, because then you're not going to be counter animating. You're going to be starting with the broadest things, your character, moving the character into place, then moving the upper arm, lower arm, hand. Then, because if you start with the hand, then you have to adjust the hand after you move the arm again. So those are some things that I cover in that video. Checklist Forever. And in blocking. So I recommend those. Cycles, seamless, smoke, and water. Okay, so someone's asking me about how to do those. It's recommending hair serum. It's hearing me talk to you guys about my hair. Okay, so if you're doing seamless smoke, I did a video called Animating Traditional Smoke and Dust Effects. Towards the end of that video, I do a cycle of smoke and my approach for doing that. And then effect cycles, bubbles. These two are going to show you how to do some seamless effects cycles. I forgot the word cycles. Those two videos are going to help you do seamless effect cycles. It's something that is much easier than people think it is once you have a good workflow. Harmony has such a, like with the drawings, being able to loop your drawings on your timeline makes it super easy to do these, but that's where I cover them. Smoke that follows a train. Okay, that one's an easy one I can do in a hot second. So let's do a quick cycle. If you're doing a very, very simple animation, what I'm going to do is just do a 5-frame cycle. I'm going to use my exposure, sequence fill. I would only want it to hold a single frame. I'll change it after. So now I have 5 drawings. I'm going to paste special. I'm going to paste it 23 times. So now it goes across the screen. Maybe I want it more, maybe I don't. And what we're going to do is just start with a small hoop. So you can see once I reach drawing 1 again, it comes back to the other drawing, and anything I add to this drawing is going to, let's break this up really fast. Anything I add to this drawing is going to add to the previous drawings. So, I mean, as quick as this, I have a little terrible cycle. And obviously take your time and do something really nice, but we're gonna just blur this a lot. Boop, 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 boop. Keep going through the cycle until you've filled in all the gaps, basically. So that's how you animate a smoke cycle. You did it. What did that take? 18 seconds. Obviously, you can spend much more time making it really beautiful. There we go. Here's our animated smoke cycle. We have a train, which you're going to spend at least 18 seconds drawing, all right? This is way less than 18 seconds. Train. There we go. Now you've got your train, now you've got your smoke. All you do is plug your smoke into your train, and because we've already got it going back, oh, other way around. So what happens when you don't label anything? We're gonna plug that in there. Gotta put it behind because it's behind the smokestack. And then let me just do this. This isn't going to leave smoke behind. You could do, if you wanted to leave smoke behind, you would have to animate something that's actually moving along in space. So you could have it moving like this and then animate your cycle that way. So I'm not going to start over, but if I was doing that, when it comes forward, then I'd have smoke coming off the back like this instead of coming straight up. So you would just have to animate your cycle moving along like that. And then it'll leave some smoke behind. It's a terrible job, but hopefully that gives you an idea. You could also, if you're using particle effects, that would be a little bit simpler. The key to that is when you have, here you've got your bees. I know we often have accidental bees. If you plug them in like this, your bees are going to follow your train, because inside here, the outside peg is plugged into the particle visualizer. If you want the sprite emitter to follow and leave bees behind, what we can do is connect the outside peg to the 3D region instead, and then we connect that to our, so now it's going to leave behind bees. See, because the emitter is following the smokestack, but the particles are not. That's going to leave smoke behind, or whatever you kind of particle effects you figure out. But if you had a sparkly dress and the sparkles need to come along for the ride, then you'd plug it into the particle visualizer, and wherever the train goes, you can see that the bees are now just buzzing around the train. So if you need bees to fly around your train, then you plug it into the particle visualizer. If you need the train to leave bees behind, you plug it into your sprite emitter, into your region here. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Do you store 2D effects in a library or create new ones? I like to make new ones as much as possible because it looks better, especially little splashes, little dust poofs, things like that. But there's just not time. So I always have a stock of effects, and if I get in early enough, that's the first thing I'll do, is I'll make some dust, some simple splashes, and some fire. Just the things that I'm going to use the most on that show. If I can get some scripts or some storyboards, I can go through and kind of see what the standard stuff is. When I worked on Sunny Day, they had a lot of things like shampoo and hairspray and splashing water and things like that. So that's kind of the stuff I built up. And then when I worked on Legend Quest, we needed everything. So there was no way for me to build up enough stock, and the time constraints just didn't allow for as much of anything as I wanted. It was just such a tight turnaround. Every episode was 2 weeks. So just watch Legend Quest and just think you have 2 weeks to do each episode. Luckily, the post guys put in so many more effects because it would have been super light, especially when you have 5 guys with 5 different magics fighting each other and you have 2 weeks to do it all. Didn't have enough time. So stock is essential when you're doing television. If you're doing feature, I think you have a little bit more time to do custom stuff, but I don't do feature. I love the chaos of television. What's the standard setup for, and there's a bunch of things, twinkling stars and a sword swish. First of all, there's no standard setup for anything. That's your first mistake. For twinkling stars, there's actually a really cheap way to do it. Again, you can use particles, but there's a really cheap way to do sparkles that I learned from someone back in the olden days. So you've got your stars. Let me turn off my grid. You might even use Photoshop because you could just use like a scatter brush. That's like nice for twinkles. But then what you do is you draw this, okay, and then you use that as a mask and rotate it. And it's the cheapest thing, and I love it because it works surprisingly well. You can put a shake note on it if you want your stars to be super twinkly, but if you just rotate it like this, see how it twinkles? It does look a little bit like if you've got an eye for it, you can see the pattern. So you could do, instead of having one, you could have a couple with less lines on it so that they're twinkling in a little bit of a less of a pattern here. You can blur it and stuff like this. You can have some transparent lines, and so then they don't go completely transparent as they're twinkling, but that's the cheapest way to do twinkling stars. Swishing swords, this kind of stuff, the best thing to do is just frame by frame your favorite animation. So here's the sword. I'll make it pointy so you know it's a sword. And sword swishes are very fast. Swish. So even that might be too many frames. And then a sword swish is just you take the color of the thing and you swish it. Like the... You can have it do that. And just leave behind some swish. That's it. Like this... It's way less complicated than you think. Just watch your favorite stuff. And they mentioned the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle show. I so want to do an animation breakdown for that. I need to get some footage, and that takes forever. Maggie Orr, friend of the channel, has recommended more breakdowns like the Mickey short or like the Tangled one I did. Also in my animation playlist. And I really want to do them. It's just finding the footage and getting it in a format where I can use it in Toon Boom so I could do frame by framing. It's a lot of work, so I'm too lazy and busy. But I really want to do it. So if you have favorite shows for effects in particular, I would love to do more of those. I just have to take the time to find the footage. If you have footage, email it to me. So there's no standard... So the question is, what are the standard setups for this stuff? There's no standard setup for anything, especially in effects. Effects is late in the game. Everything's got to kind of get tied up. It's like when they say, I'm going to fix it in post, in 2D animation, post is effects. So things that are not working out in character animation will just get pushed onto me, and then I have to find a way to make it work. And oftentimes it's just duct tape and glue and prayer and a lot of ugly stuff, a lot of ASDF nodes, because there's not a lot of time to do that stuff. So there's no standard way to set it up. Whenever you're making something for stock in particular, you just have to name it very clearly and have all your parts organized so that anybody coming in after you, like I worked on a show for a year, and then once the show was established, I left and another person came in, and they were the effects lead for that show, and they had to take over my style and all of the effects nodes that I had there for stock. So it had to be easy enough for them to jump in and figure out how things worked. And we had a little bit of a transition where I was able to help him if he had any trouble with the stuff, but that's not always the case. Like if this show runs out, I'm working on now, and they don't have any other 2D productions, I'll move on to another studio because I don't do 3D, because I am a snob. And then whoever comes in after me will have to just figure it out. So name things well, organize things well, but there's no standard. That's not a thing. Okay, so have you ever been stuck in a disorganized project? Like all of them. All right, so here's an example of one of the projects that I've worked on in the past. It's no longer in production, so I feel safe sharing it with you. Different studios deal with effects differently, but like currently we have one big online organizational platform that all the different departments use. So animation uses it, layout uses it, and so everything's kept track of there. All the retakes that the animators use or get will come on that, and they'll say, oh, you got to fix this, you got to fix that, and the effects retakes will come there as well. I tend to work at the same time as the animators do. So some studios will make all the effects before it's all stock and it's just dropped in, and I don't think that's the best way to do it, because then either animators have to customize it, the animators put it in wrong, and you're really disappointed because you put so much time into a very specific idea, and they like rotate it 90 degrees and it looks awful. Or it's just no customization. So I really like the way that the studio I work with now approaches it, where I work at the same time as the animators or a little bit later. They'll mostly finish up their scenes and then I'll start working on them while they're in the midst of retakes, which has its own problems. But there's only one show I've worked on under Simon Paquette. He's the one I've done interviews with about storyboarding and stuff, where animation was complete and approved and then effects happened. And it was amazing. Every studio should do this, but they don't want to schedule extra time for effects. They just jam it in between something else and hope for the best. And it's so much harder because then we have retakes. The animators have to redo their character animation and we have to redo our effects animation, or the animators will just move the character and they won't move the splash. They're like, oh, I can't move that. It's a splash. It's like, no, it's literally just a peg. Just shift click it and then just move it. Why? Like, move it. And so then we'll have to go and do a lot of retakes. But still, I like this a lot better than just doing stock. So what I'll do is I'll go through the storyboards. I'll write down every single scene that has an effect. There's a lot of creaks in here. This one, I don't know why it hasn't been color coded. But as something is finished, I will turn it yellow. Boop. If something needs to be revised because I see something in the render or the animation has changed and I need to make a note of it, I'll turn it to like red or something, so it's different from the yellow. And if I'm working with another person, I can leave them notes or whatever. So because the animators and stuff are always just shifting where things are from animation revision to animation supervisor, things like that, it's easier for me and whoever I'm working with to have our own little special space where we can keep track of what's done and what's not, because it never really has time to get into effects revision because the animators are just always cycling through theirs. So I really like this. And I'll also have another spreadsheet that keeps track of all the episodes when they're due. So say we have 101, 102, 10. So let's say we just have all our episodes like this in a row, and this one's due on the 1st. Let's say 17, 14, 21, and 31. Like those are the days of the month that the episodes are due, like this, and I'll have all of them in a row. So this will be January, February, March, or whatever. I know there's no February 31st, but that's okay. And then when it's, so if I'm working on it, it'll be purple, and then the next, when I move on the next one, this will come purple, 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 and then when they're finished, they are yellow. I never use green because it feels like too much of a commitment. If you say it's greenlit, then it's done. So it can't possibly be done and they'll come after you. Then if it has very urgent retakes I have to keep track of, I make it red. And if it has like kind of retakes that need to get addressed soon, I will make it orange. So at any one time, these can change colors and I will always update. So like, okay, this has urgent retakes, but today is the 18th. So I have to change this to the 18th of August. And then every morning I can look, I'm like, okay, 104 has to be addressed today because we have retakes due today. Then 103 is next most important. I'll always go back to the current episode as soon as I get the most urgent retakes under control. So that's how I keep things organized. I could probably make an entire series on that. Next question. That's enough on spreadsheets. The best resources for learning the node view. Honestly, using the node view is the best way to learn the node view. You just start with these three: composite, drawing, and peg. You figure out how to plug those into each other, how to do very, very simple things with them, create a little Eggman. Then you move and add a cutter. Cutter is your next most important item. Then you add a new node and a new node. If you don't know what a node does, then you go to your help menu and you just check. It's really as simple as that. That's how we learned. I had a little crash course in college on how to use the node view in Digital Pro 2, I believe it was at the time. And everything else I learned through the help menu. It's really as simple as that. You start very simple. You add a new item, add a new item. When you have a question, you ask, how do I solve this problem using nodes? And then you go to the help menu. And if you don't know what to search, message one of us Toon Boomers on the thing, like the backdrop. Just message me and be like, hey, I need to do a mask. How do you do a mask? And I'll say, oh, it's a cutter. That's what you need to go to your help menu. You need to go search a cutter. Even the Toon Boom Twitter. I love Toon Boom Twitter. They're super responsive and they're the best place to get your questions answered. Sorry, Toon Boom Twitter, but you'll get answers faster than anywhere else. Unless you're on their Discord. Discord is usually pretty good too. My favorite effects to animate. Okay, this is from Bird Brain. I love to animate weird, long form stuff, things where I can just take a long time to just, like those smoke cycles where I make it like unnecessary 58 frame cycle because I just love doing very long, slow things. This year I got to do some really cool, like abstract things. I like smell cycles, which I cannot wait to share. I just really enjoyed them. I also love when something has steam coming off of it and it's moving around and I get to just do all that wafty steam when I have time. The problem is time. I want to spend a million years on every single effect because I love it. Oh, on the most fun to animate that I've worked on was on Ever After High, Raven's Magic. It had this beautiful, smoky, fiery purple. Oh, so fun. Everything is fun. I don't think I've come across anything I don't like to animate. There are some things that cause me rage. Like water can be super duper tedious, especially if it's like a big crazy water scene. I had to flood an entire library, but it's a fun frustration. It's not like, there's nothing I'm like, ugh, I have to animate this today. I love it. It's such a good job. Make more dust and clouds. Okay. Do you guys want to just watch me animate dust and clouds? Because I like to do that. Reasons for twos. When my family's running around. When you animate things on twos, they just look punchier. There are times when ones work better if it's really fast. Like this sword swish, you're not going to get that on twos. You're not going to get that motion blur in there. You're going to just, my rule is that I work on twos exclusively until it doesn't work. So if the twos just can't get it in there because it's too fast, then I go to ones. So I think it looks punchier, it looks nicer, it doesn't look as floaty. And that's a real problem I notice in 3D. Cheap 3D animation, you get a lot of floatiness where people don't feel really grounded and settled, and twos really help with that. So that's my reason for twos. I just think it looks nicer. Twos until it doesn't work. So this is almost an hour. I'm gonna have to edit it down. I think it's probably gonna be about half an hour. But thank you so much for everybody who included your questions. If you have more questions, we could do more of these because they're super easy to do with no preparation. And again, I have no plan for next week, so I don't know what's gonna happen. But thanks for your questions. Thanks for dropping by. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do, and I will see you in the next video.